top students have grades, A in maths, A in physics, A in chemistry, and then ask what happened in English. So, colleagues, when the results were out, yeah, this is for English, so the upstairs, yeah. So you can just join the. When the results were out, what was the mood in the school? Was there an improvement, a drop? Well, what? Can just share experience.
There was a slight improvement.
But the good thing is, whenever there's an improvement, you don't have to explain. Yes, but whenever there's a drop. But generally, in English last year, national there was a drop. There was a drop, particularly maybe if we were to share some of those items that we have made. You can find those objectives. Is it on page 20, the last page of the syllabus of English? And because that's the syllabus, wherever you go to class, actually, when we are writing our lesson plans and even schemes of work, we have to write the objectives. By the end of the lesson, the learner should be able to do this, that, and that. And therefore, by the end of the 4-year course learning, by the end of Form 4, we expect that the learner is able to do this, that, and that. And this, by the way, is the exam. When NEC has to set exams, they go back to their objectives. They go back to the objectives of teaching and learning English, and therefore to test if the objectives have been met or not. For example, one is to listen and respond to comprehension, to infer and interpret meaning. And therefore, we shall have a question on inferences. It hardly misses. A question on inferences, to infer meaning. To listen to and process from a variety of sources. To speak accurately, that's for paper 1. Speak accurately, fluently, confidently, and in a variety of contexts that can be tested in paper 1. To use verbal and non-verbal cues effectively, that's still for paper 1. To read fluently and effectively, that's a general objective that may not be tested specifically in the exam, but as students leave Form 4, can they read fluently, effectively? To appreciate the importance of reading for a variety of purposes, are we producing students who can read? Then to develop a lifelong interest in reading on a wide range of subjects, then to read comprehension and literacy books. Then these other objectives are objectives for teaching, particularly literature. One is to read and analyze works from Kenya, East Africa, the rest of the world, and the most important thing is relate these experiences in these works. And that's why we have a text from Kenya. Like in this case, Fathers of Nations is seen as a text from Kenya. Then have one from East Africa. And in this case, we have Parliament of Alls from East Africa. The other time we had one from Uganda, Chariots of Tenderness. And so we have a text from East Africa, then have a text from Africa. In this case, we have the short stories, largely from parts of Africa and other parts of the world. Then you have a text from the rest of the world. In this case, we have the Samaritan, a text from outside Africa. And therefore, we meet those requirements that a student should be able to do that. To respect and appreciate the question. They are the exact questions, and we now even could tell the universal answers. Welcome, sir. This is Kenyatta of Demystified. He will be talking to us in paper 1. And therefore, these are the areas. We shall have a question on the plot and setting. It usually comes as question 1, either placing the excerpt in the immediate context, what happens before, what happens after, or referring to elsewhere in the text. Questions, characterization, and role. This one is a question that no student should fail because the marking scheme is too large and the illustrations are easier to pick out. Themes, message, and moral lesson, styles and language use. And then you have general comprehension questions. For general comprehension questions, we can debate because we don't know how it will come. But for the signature questions, these 3, this one and this one and this one. Okay, this one, sometimes we may not know where the excerpt will come from. And therefore, maybe you can just give guidelines. But the three questions, the signature questions, we know where they come, maybe where they can come from, and how some of the possible answers, and therefore we can use that to train our students well. The first question, placing the except in the immediate context. In this year, we want the student to say, where do the events take place? These were not made long ago. In fact, that was the first question last year. Where does this conversation take place? The people involved, what the characters say, the replies they get, the emotions such as maybe Alvita is afraid that, you remark. Nicole says that. Montana answers that. And those, or Nicole thinks that's not possible. And then we get the correct answers. Let's help our students to know all the characters, including minor characters. This year, when we shall have the Samaritan, we still have a problem. I don't know if it's my school alone, but students still confused, especially Seymour, Chad, Ramdai, they don't know who is in charge of this, who is in charge of what, and what they do. So like sometimes a student can get correct facts, but for a wrong character. So we can help them to learn that quite easily. The question, what do we learn about? Is a common question. The marking schemes is also usually wide, so you help to get that. For us now, this is for good schools. There's a problem. Sometimes we give a lot of blank ticks when the students use synonyms to describe characters in different words. So maybe the question reads, discuss any 3 character traits of Nicole. That's to instance, Nicole is loving. Take 1. She mentors the student to develop the Samaritan app. Take 1. There comes, Nicole is caring. Caring is the same as loving. Blank tick. She tells the kid that you are going places. Correct illustration, blank tick. Nicole is concerned. Concerned means the same as loving and caring, blank tick. So that at the end of it all, a student has 6 ticks with 2 marks. And especially this other question, courageous and brave. They do not know maybe the difference. Or honest, open, candid. Like we can help our students to get the correct vocabulary so that they actually get marks when they respond to questions. For a good student, by the way, sometimes you can beat negatives on game because there are so many things that are interrelated within the exam. For example, if any character is deceitful, then you have a theme of deceit. We have one question. Discuss any one theme in the text. Theme of deceit. Illustrations. Why do people like telling lies? Character trait, go to deceitful. Use the same illustration. Even if you use one illustration for 3 times correctly, you should be given marks. And there are some things, once we see this, we must add this. For example, when you're developing the marking scheme, once you see that there's a theme of, for example, hypocrisy, a character trait must be hypocritical. We use the same illustration. And therefore, students can also pick out those items that can help them to maximize on marks. This is a $1 million question because the answers never change. And it can be there this year. Last year, it was set different. And that's why I say all the questions will revolve around developing the plot, developing characters, developing themes, especially on the effectiveness of styles. Or if you are asked, what is the role of any character in the text? Those answers never change. In fact, should it come in any exam, so should you get all those 4 answers or 4 or 5 answers. They hardly change. Only that let us help our student to start, maybe to relate, to give specific evidence in the text, so that if it's developing other characters, say it brings out the loving character of this person. We talked about universal human values, and These are the universal human values that KICD and the Ministry of Education requires us to help students get the universal human values. I can see a few teachers struggling. Maybe you can get some of these here full. Uh, Madam, so you don't have to. Maybe you can follow with us on the universal human values. And teachers, we can go back to NEC from 2006 when when the current system of setting started. They have never set anything outside this. For example, last year it was determination. Being determined, they call, but this is largely for preparatory differences to bring out the irony. For question 4, we shall maybe, if we get time, we'll go through that. But still, question 4 has to do with the grammar. And we often share with the teachers. We are teachers of English, is it? Uh-huh. Madam, as I compare the definition of what grammar. What is grammar? If a student was to ask you, what is grammar? Because when we go to mark, we start from the definition. We mark with the definition of grammar in mind. Grammar refers to. Yes, sir? Yes? Refers to? Yeah, actually, grammar refers to rules of language. And therefore, we are looking at rules. In any other place, you may break a few rules, we are lenient. But when it comes to grammar, because we are dealing with the rules of language, so that even if the answer is correct, but you have broken one small rule, no mark. And currently, we do not give a half a mark for good attempt. It's just 0. If you were to place there a comma and it's not there, just a comma alone, that will deny a student a full mark. If a student just maybe has gotten the answer right, but has placed a capital letter in the middle of a sentence, even if that's not where the exam is, they will not get a single mark. And therefore, as we go back to school, we can make the marking of grammar follow the rules. Let us remind them. And especially, we've also seen like they test one thing, writing, especially the uppercase and lowercase of letters, especially common letters such as C, S, O, L, K, J, P, and others, because students do not know the difference between capital J and small j. So like the other year, 2022, they just give a word with Japan. Then you are in your writing, you're so fast, the J crosses the line a little bit, that becomes small. And then now that's where the test is. Last year, we also had words such as Joyce and others. So they go for those small letters, such as Z also. Like students do not know how to show small s and capital S. So that in words such as sisters, where we have two S, we need to see the difference, and even M and W, so that even if you write a very big M, but it has, but does not have sharp edges, that's considered still as small. So I think that is my take. Last year, generally the exam was, I think the first student had about 68. The other years, but we have gotten 60, like we've gotten 76 before. We have ever gotten a 78 out of 80. We've gotten 70s in the past, a lot of 65s. But last year, 60s were very few, and I think that's why generally the country mean went down. Although also, from the bottom, English is one subject that even with the poor students, you can help them to get something. There's always something that they can always get. So we can go to looking at paper 2, and we look at some of those few items. I had wanted to concentrate more on the settings, and maybe if we get time, we shall look at more of that. Whatever there's something maybe in the comprehension or other places that you can share, we shall point it out. But we do understand the setbook, so that when you also go to class, we are confident, we are equipped, so that we also share approaches. sometimes we teach, but when you listen to a friend teach, you can learn a point or two. And that's why I'm also here actually to even also learn from you, because we have different approaches to teaching, to analyzing the text, and we can remind ourselves of the text. Mhm. Hey, somebody with a text, with a copy of the set books? I never leave out mine because I believe, and I always tell students, the text is the marking scheme. Those textbooks are the marking scheme. And therefore, and last year we had almost 6 marks, especially when we had this question. Why is I've used mine until they're very old. Because we read. In the car we read, in the house. This one I usually have one in the house, another one in the car, another one in the office. And madam, you can see this one is not the school edition. When the ministry announced, I had to go and read and get one so that we read. And today, in the case of anything, so we can also see, like even point ourselves out, compare. This is not the case. Let's go to this page. We can get this evidence, and once we have evidence from the text, it can actually really help us to become confident teachers and to get the facts right, so that we maybe in case of any argument, we just go to the text. Paper 2. And there's another one, tone, mood, attitude. Those questions hardly miss. And we know even this year, they are likely to be there. And therefore, because we know that that those questions are going to be there, we can make sure that we train our students early enough that they are going to get full marks in these questions. One thing with paper 2, all the marks is in illustrations. And the best way to illustrate is to quote, to lift parts of either the comprehension, parts of the excerpt, parts of the poem, or parts of the oral narrative as your answer. So instead of a student maybe saying there's a rhetorical question, maybe Nicole asks many questions. Would not even need that blanket statement. Asks many questions. Let the student just quote one question. And where shall we get resources? That's enough. Rhetorical questions. Or can we change with such kind of leadership? Then that's enough illustration. But if like you, maybe blanket statements such as maybe Nicole is loving. He loves Alvita and Montana so much. So what shows? That's still a blanket statement that does not score a mark. But they say, my little darlings, you know, I believe in you. I'm very proud of you. That shows that maybe that she's loving is a better illustration. So we can also tell our students to always go for those pointing out, lifting parts. Last year we had a few observations. If it's a rhetorical question, and imagine just the question mark alone misses, no mark. But there was this question on simile, and if a student just quotes part like this and this, then like the other part is missing, no mark. So it's sometimes painful when you see a student who has the correct concept but failing because of technicalities. As the teachers, we can help them to avoid most of those technicalities. Sometimes, depending on the setting of the exam, for the questions on styles, they may want the effectiveness or not, but we can make it a habit in our school. Let all students give the effectiveness, so that if it's there, they get the mark. If it's not there, they are not penalized. Because sometimes we see students who have the correct concept, but because they do not give maybe full answers, then they end up missing marks. And you realize, colleagues, just like maybe the role of characters, most styles will just perform 4 roles or 5 roles. Styles will bring out themes. Styles will develop the plot. Styles will reveal character traits. Styles will show the mood or the tone. And therefore, let the students, like always say, like, can Africa change? It brings out the theme of change. Why did you do this to me, you silly girl? It shows the contemptuous attitude. Like let us also tell them to revolve around those 4 items. When you're explaining a style, be it an image, personification, whatever, in most cases, the effectiveness revolves around those 4 or 5 items. So, question 3. Last year, the poem, I think for the first time we did not have a lot of 20s. Actually, maybe no student got a 20 because of a few traps by neck. But the poem was literally manageable. Like we always, in all poetry, we only have 3 methods of answering the question. And one of them is the easiest. Like when we are marking, even at school, and get the question, what is the poem about? There are always 3 approaches. The first approach is the outline, the paraphrasing method. And that's the easiest because a student is allowed to say whatever they can say, wherever a point comes in, like they can get the correct mark. So paraphrasing is the easiest, to rewrite the poem in their own words. And I've checked KCC for the past, I think, 3-4 years. The question on paraphrasing has not missed. Last year, in fact, last year the question was, in your own words, explain the relationship between impunity and corruption. That is paraphrasing. 2023, the first question on the oral narrative was in not more than 3 sentences. Summarize what the narrative is all about. This is paraphrasing. I think 2022 there was also paraphrasing, and therefore it also shows that we should teach our students how to paraphrase, how to summarize items in short words. It helps. For poetry, the other one is to use the thematic approach to explain. For those who can do that, if they can do that, well and better. And when you're marking for one correct theory, to communicate appropriately in functional and creative writing, that's paper 1 and paper 3. To write legibly and neatly, legibly and effectively. Can we read our students' work? That's the part of the exam. Part of what we need to go to class to help our students do in 4 years. But if you are to write the objective for 4 years, say, by the end of the 4 years, my students should be able to write neatly, legibly, and effectively. To think creatively and critically, then to appreciate the special way the user uses language, and therefore we shall have a lot of marks on stylistics. Then lastly, to appreciate the universal human values contained in these works. And if you understand especially the universal human values, we are going to go through some of them. You realize that summarizes the exam as it has ever been from 206. We can even maybe look at the question, say, this one they said this, last year they tested this, now for this year they can test this or this and this. You can actually even predict the English exam to the point. If you do and maybe understand how the syllabus works and the philosophies behind the testing. We may not go into all of that. We may share some of them. So let's look at paper 2. Paper 2 generally tests reading skills. We have 3 papers because we have 4 skills in English. For someone to say that they understand language, they should be able to speak it. Unaweza pata mtu anasema naelewa Kijaluo, naelewa nasikia, which means the competence is low. Ukiongea naweza sikia, ama pia naweza kiongea, that's listening and speaking. That's in paper 1. The second level is reading. I can read in English. That is tested in paper 2. The third and the highest level is writing. If a student can write, especially in our mother tongues, then that's the highest level of usage. But in paper 2, we look at comprehension skills, intensive reading. That's for question 1, extensive reading. Critical reading for question 3, especially the poem and the oral narrative. Summary and note making. Last year it was good because we had making notes, and most students got it right. This year, if we have a summary, let us help our students. That question will still be there in this year's KCC, summary writing. And then literary skills will actually take more marks. We take 45 out of 60 marks. So some of the questions these are simple questions. If you're setting your exam at home, at school, we should have, the first question is usually a recall question, especially the answer comes from paragraph 1. So simple for almost every student to get. Then as we go to other questions such as define.
Some of them cannot read, including very simple optional questions were left blanks. There are a few, just a few topics that you can pick so that when we go back, as we prepare our students for cases this year, we'll look at what to do. One, for comprehension, I think this last year it was mixed feeling. There are those questions that we are going to look maybe to go through in the course of our talk, particularly things to do with the application of knowledge. Two parts: comparison, differences, cause and effect, and last